From wheat drifting to fresh lows to soybeans falling despite strong demand, the market feels like it's speaking in riddles. I'm Johanna Bota, and joining us to break down the clues and connect the story behind the moves is Bertrand Oesterle, VP of Clearing and Execution Sales at StoneX. Welcome, Bert. Can you believe it's our last interview for the year?
It is. Good morning.
Let's start with March 26 Paris wheat, which fell to 185.5, a new contract low. What's causing the pressure this time?
So we reached that 185.5 low yesterday. We're slightly a touch higher so far this morning.
Okay.
There's been a few elements. I mean, first of all, people have been asking the same question as you. The Russians have hit 3 Turkish vessels in the Black Sea over the past few days, and that has not even dented the market up. So grains and oilseeds and energy markets didn't notice. On the contrary, people have been focusing on the talk of ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. That was the first thing that pressured the market. Then the Russians are still exporting quite briskly. Normally December to March we expect the winter conditions to freeze and to make the logistics a bit more difficult. This time it's still very much ongoing. It's a mild winter so far, and the Russians are expecting to export some 3.9 million tons of wheat this month, which is up from 3.4 last year. And the export tax has been removed, so it's like export as much as you can while you can before the end of the year. Also, we've seen some data coming out of Argentina. So the Rosario Grain Exchange came in with a very high number, the highest I've ever seen, 27.7 million tons of output estimate for Argentina. The previous record is 22.4, and we keep hearing from other people. One client was telling me this morning they had people on the ground doing a tour, and they've upped their estimate by 2 million tons because it looks so good in Argentina. Then the thing that came to really finish the French in a way was the fact that China is loading some Argentine wheat, some 65,000 tons. So it's been all about who's the cheapest, and the French was saying at 185.5 we have to be cheap, but China is loading some Argentine wheat. So again, a bit of pressure at a time when the euro is a bit higher, so it doesn't help, and that's how we've made that new low. Now, when we speak to clients, they are still very much of the same opinion as last week. They think that we are in a situation where we're going to stay in a range, i.e. 185.5 is low enough for us to be competitive, so we have to bounce, but we can't bounce that much because we've got plenty of export competition still from Russia, from Argentina, from Australia, from Canada, for example. So people expect the market in wheat to more or less stay range bound. Now, I've put my neck under the guillotine line this morning. I've looked at the technicals. The technicals are very interesting for March 26 Chicago wheat. We have 2 elements which are combining, which is basically the candle trading, which is under the lower Bollinger Band, and also we're very close to the RSI, which is around 31%, so it's very close to being oversold. And usually when we combine those 2 elements on the technical chart, we have a bounce. Okay. So I've been asking people their opinion this morning. Most people think it's a dead cat bounce, and I'm putting the neck on the line. I think it's going to be a better bounce. I'm hoping for a 30-cent bounce, in the sense that we're going to see potentially some of the specs reducing their position to realize profit by the end of the year. And usually, historically, there is a bounce between Christmas and New Year in wheat for XYZ reasons. So it's true that fundamentally, all the fundamental news we've seen so far in wheat are bearish. Technically, we have a potential for a bounce.
Okay, we'll have to see. Okay, my favorite question of the week: has China bought any more U.S. soybean? I have to ask you every week.
Indeed. Well, it's been going on for the past 2 months, and they've bought some 668,000 tons of U.S. soybean this week, and it is at a time when the national auctions are taking place as well. So I did mention that Sinograin is trying to get rid of some old 2022, 2023 soybean that they had bought previously, which sits in reserves. They are releasing some of those reserves onto the domestic market through auctions. There's been 2 auctions, 512,500 tons and 514,000 tons. Yep. And the uptake has been pretty good, 77.3% and 62.8%. Now, why is that important? Because the US market is very attentive to those sales in China from reserves, because they're saying that Sinograin is basically making space for potentially more US purchases.
So what about US internal demand?
So that's been very solid as well. So we had, last time we met, we had spoken about the NOPA figure for October. The USDA has confirmed. So NOPA represents about 95% of the figure. USDA shows 100%. And the October figures for the US soybean crush were at 237.1 million bushels. It's a record. It's a massive figure. And then for November, NOPA came up with a estimate that was 216.04 million bushels. Other analysts had about 220, so slightly lower, but still a bigger number than last year. So there is definitely internal confirmation of demand.
So can you explain then, because I don't understand, if China is buying US soybeans and US demand is strong, why is soybean still falling?
So that's the question that many people have asked me this week, and the answer is about the pace of China's buying. Okay. So yes, China has been buying over the past 2 months. We can calculate that for what's been declared, it's some 4.4 to 5 million tons of US soybean that has been bought by China, but it's far away from the 12 million tons that either Besson, Vance or Trump were saying would happen by the 31st of December. Right. Now, it all depends on how you look at that 12 million tons. Was it the 5.9 from January all the way to end of September, and then from now on to December, we could get to 11 million tons currently? Or is it just from the point where Besson said there's going to be 12 million tons by the end of December up to that point, in which case we're still very behind. And even if we get to 12 million tons, it's still much lower than 24.7 of the previous year. So it feels like, yes, it's going in the right direction. China is buying, but it's still slightly on the disappointing side. Okay. Also, when you look at South America, everything is still going pretty well. The estimates for Argentina and for Brazil haven't changed much. If I take Brazil, it's still around the 178 million ton mark, despite having some analysts saying that there are little tweaks there and there, some little hiccups, if I may put it that way. There's been some excessive central Brazilian rain that could slow down development. There's been some dryness in Rio Grande do Sul. And some analysts have spoken of January likely to have some La Nina dryness. But overall, fundamentally, the South American put pressure.
Okay, so that's soybean. What about rapeseed? Is it bearish as well?
So rapeseed's been very interesting. Yes, it's been following soybeans, so yes, it has been bearish in that sense. But I did mention it over the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's been now 6 weeks that the specs are building a long in rapeseed. That long went all the way to 38,000 lots, reduced last week to 32. We're going to have an update later on from the COT from Euronext at 4 o'clock. And the specs have been buying rapeseed into a falling market. So that's been very interesting because we've gone from 480 to 470 on November, while the specs are still building along. And it has distorted the Feb-May spread. So the Feb-May spread is very much into an inverse. It is positive. It's straight up to +9. This morning it's around the +7.5 mark. And it shows that the specs are very much into the February. And the 2 reasons that they've mentioned about being bullish rapeseed have been one reason that we've mentioned before and a new one that came out this week. So the one we knew about, there's been talk of China buying non-GM canola from Australia. And the assumption is that if China takes away the Australian supply, and the rest of the world for non-GM rapeseed has got to come to Europe, so there would be more demand for Europe, and that would be the reason why the specs have gone in. The second piece of news that came up this week, the Germans have delayed their decision to stop using crop foods for biodiesel. So that means that there's demand for longer. And one of the German newspapers also said that they believe from the sources they had that Europe is going to give up on its proposal to ban new cars that are using a diesel engine or petrol engine. So that would be abandoned. So in that case, it produces a bit of demand. So the big question mark now for rapeseed is, what are the specs going to do? And the report today at 4 o'clock is going to be very interesting. Are the specs reducing their rapeseed long because soybean is falling, or are they keeping it on? If they are keeping it on, it's against a trade which is very short, and it's going to be interesting to see who gives up first. Is it going to be the trade that's going to give up and short cover, the market could go up, or are the funds going to completely get out, and in that case the February could completely collapse? So it's going to be a very interesting space to watch.
Okay, and last but not least, corn. Any news there?
So in corn, we spoke last week about China. The Chinese Agricultural Ministry was mentioning a 300 million ton crop. That's been confirmed this week by the Chinese Statistical Bureau, so 301.2 million tons. That's up from 295, so again, a bit bearish. When we look at Argentina and Brazil, we've seen similar estimates over the past week, so it's still good production estimates, but very likely, or very similarly to soybean, there's some hiccups as well, where central parts of Brazil have had too much rain. It could slow down the development of corn. Rio Grande do Sul in southern Brazil is too dry, so that could have an impact. And some analysts have also, for corn, spoken about the risk that La Nina could pose in January by producing some dryness. But generally speaking, it's still fairly heavy fundamentals still.
Okay, well, lots to keep an eye on. Now, seeing as this is our last interview for the year, do you have any messages for our listeners?
So yes, I do. Thank you. So I'd like to thank all our listeners, but also all our customers for all their support and continued trust over the past year. It's been an interesting development for me to be in front of you and working with the StoneX TV. So thank you to yourself and the crew as well. And I'd like to thank the clients to put me in the privileged position I'm in the sense that we have a lot of customers, from consumers to producers and everyone in between. I have a privileged view of what everyone does, and that's what allows me to bring back the generic and summarized view that people have so far very positively commented upon. So just to close it, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful festive season and Merry Christmas.
Bert, thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication this year. We love having you in the studio. And thank you to all of our viewers for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to follow and like our channel.